السابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. So last time then we got up to hadith number 7. عن أبي رقية تميم بن أوس الداري رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: الدين النصيحة. قلنا: لمن؟ قال: لله ولكتابه ولرسوله ولأئمة المسلمين وعامتهم. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the religion is an-nasiha, sincerity, purity, and he repeated that 3 times in one of the versions of the hadith: ad-dinu an-nasiha, ad-dinu an-nasiha, ad-dinu an-nasiha. And we covered the first sections of that last time regarding lillahi, the deen being nasiha to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also covered walikitabihi, the deen being nasiha to the book of Allah, and also in regards to lirasulihi, the nasiha to the messenger, or in regards to the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now we arrived at the 4th part in the narration, which was an-nasiha li'ammati or li'a'immati al-muslimina wa 'ammatihim. The nasiha to the rulers of the Muslims and to the general folk. Here Shaykh al-Fawzan Hafidhahullah ta'ala mentions وَلِأَئِمَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. الْمُرَادُ بِأَئِمَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وُلَاةُ الْأُمُورِ. The intended meaning behind the A'immatil Muslimin, the Imams of the Muslims, are the rulers, the Wulatul Umur, those who are in authority and are rulers of the Muslims. وَالنَّصِيحَةُ لَهُمْ تَكُونُ بِاعْتِقَادِ وِلَايَتِهِمْ. And your nasiha, your purity and sincerity in regards to the rulers, is firstly to accept their authority over you. To accept their authority over you. وَالسَّمْعِ وَالطَّاعَةِ لهم بالمعروف, and to hear and obey them in that which is good and permissible. To hear and obey the rulers. Islamically, we've been commanded to obey the rulers, to hear and obey in that which is permissible and correct. والقيام بالمهام والأعمال التي يسندونها إليك, and that you fulfill the duties and responsibilities that the Imams, the rulers, have delegated to you. If the rulers have delegated some responsibilities or certain actions to be implemented by you, then you have to implement them. فالموظف والمدير والمدرس والقاضي والمفتي وكل من ولي عملا من أعمال المسلمين والله ولي الأمر عليه فإنه يجب عليه النصيحة فيه بأن يقوم به على الوجه المطلوب. So all types of the workers, the employees, whether it's a person who is the head of a company or school, a teacher, a judge, a mufti in Islamic affairs, all of these people have been appointed by the rulers in the Muslim countries. That's how it works. They are appointed by the rulers, by the government, to look after the affairs of the Muslims. The judge looks after the affairs of the Muslims. When there are disputes or there are marital issues or other affairs, then they return back to the judges. And in Saudi Arabia, for example, it's a well-known thing that when it comes to marital issues, for example, the scholars don't give fatwa on those things. If a person comes with a question on his personal marital affair, his personal marital issues, they don't give fatwas. They say go to the mufti or the judge. Go to the judge, take your affair there, clarify everything, and the judge will give you an Islamic ruling based upon your specific details. Otherwise, the scholars do not give their fatwas to the people. When people say, my husband's been doing this or been doing that, or the husband says, my wife this and my wife that, and what's the ruling? The scholars do not give you a ruling. They tell you, go to the judge, go to the mufti, who will look into your affair in detail and give you the Islamic judgment and ruling upon it. So the judges and the mufti and the teachers for the children, they are all placed there by the rulers to look after the affairs of the believers. So it is upon every person to fulfill their duties and responsibilities placed upon them by the rulers in goodness. فَإِن نَقَصَ أَوْ قَصَّرَ فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ نَاصِحًا لِوُلَاةِ الْأُمُورِ. So if those types of employees, and this is talking about the context of a Muslim country, if those kinds of employees do not fulfill their responsibilities properly, then they are not being upon nasiha to the rulers. And think about that example. In the Muslim countries, all the positions and in the schools and institutes and those types of things, they're all centrally governed by the authorities. Ultimately, that leads back to the government and the rulers. The Shaykh says, one of those people, a teacher in a classroom, isn't doing his job properly, a judge in a courtroom isn't doing his job properly, a head teacher isn't doing his job properly, then those people have a deficiency in their nasiha to the Wali al-Amr, whom under they have been appointed. It is from your uprightness, from your sincerity and purity, that even with your job in that circumstance, your responsibilities, you fulfill them as you have been appointed by ultimately the Wali al-Amr to fulfill certain duties. وَكَذَلِكَ مِنَ النَّصِيحَةِ لِوُلَاةِ الْأُمُورِ مُنَاصَحَتُهُمْ عَنْ بَعْضِ الْأَخْطَاءِ الَّتِي تَحْصُلُ. Also from the nasiha to the rulers is that you advise them upon any shortcomings or errors that may have occurred from them. وَلَا يَعْلَمُونَ عَنْهَا, and maybe they are not even aware of something that has occurred as a shortcoming from them. فَيُبَلَّغُونَ بِهَا, and so they are to be informed of that. إِن كَانَتْ مِنْ غَيْرِهِمْ, especially if the affair is related to someone other than them under their leadership, then they are to be informed of those affairs. وَإِن كَانَتْ مِنْهُمْ يُبَيَّنُ لَهُمْ خَطَأُهُمْ فِيهَا, and if the error is from the ruler himself, then that error is clarified directly to the ruler. وَلَكِنْ, but now is the important point. Rulers, can they make mistakes? They can make mistakes. Shortcomings, can they occur? Of course they can occur. And so it is from nasiha to direct them to goodness and to advise them against that shortcoming. But how is that done? That's the key. According to the misguided ones, the Ikhwanis, the Khawarij and their likes, if a ruler makes a mistake or an error or a shortcoming, as far as they are concerned, you need to publicly start speaking against the rulers, publicizing their mistakes and their errors, and they've done this and they've done that and this and that, publicizing it upon the khutab on Fridays and the manabir, publicizing it online, publicizing it in their open gatherings. That is not the way of Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. If you see a shortcoming from a ruler or an error that is emanating from him, the Shaykh says, لكن لا يكون هذا في المجالس أو على المنابر. That is not done in your gatherings, that you sit there speaking against the rulers this and the rulers that, and the rulers done this and the rulers done that. It is not in your gatherings that you sit there backbiting the ruler. And neither على المنابر, nor that you do it publicized upon the mimbar. They stand in the khutbah and they speak against the rulers, the Ikhwanis and their likes. That is not from the way of Ahlus-Sunnah. And that is from their core manhaj almost. The Ikhwan al-Muslimun. It is from their core manhaj almost that every khutbah has to be some type of refutation against the Muslim rulers. Every khutbah has to be some type of rebuttal and rebuke against the Muslim rulers. And there used to be a time in one of the Ikhwani mosques where we were forced to pray Jum'ah. There was no other option, years and years ago. And the khatib, different ones, they used to come every week. And when they used to come, some of them, the opening of the khutbah, you had hope, because they would begin with some ayat and some ahadith talking about the Quran and the Sunnah, and you had hope that perhaps this will be a beneficial khutbah. But then a few minutes into it, after those ayat and ahadith, they would go into a topic against the rulers. The rulers this and the rulers of such and such a country that, and these rulers this and these rulers that, speaking and rebuking and refuting the rulers of the Muslims. And that would be their khutbah week in, week out. And that is from the misguided methodology. We do not go up on the mimbar Friday sermon talking about the Muslim countries and their rulers, and they've done this wrong and they've done that wrong, and this is incorrect and that is a mistake, and the ruler this and the ruler that. That has never been the methodology of Ahlus-Sunnah. That is the methodology of Ahlul Bid'ah, to speak against the rulers in that way. إنما هذا يكون بين الناصح وبين ولي الأمر. Rather, advising the rulers is between that person and the ruler. And that's why it is known the scholars certainly advise. and they are upon the council for the rulers, and they will speak to the rulers and advise the rulers and give them input. The ulama, the scholars, they have that position with the rulers in the Muslim countries, and they do that between them and the ruler, not publicly come and give a lecture. The ruler's done this and the ruler's done that, and the ruler this mistake and the ruler that mistake. Not publicly writing books against the rulers. Rather, they go and they speak, and the advice is between them and the ruler. Imma mushafahatan wa imma kitabatan. Either verbally go and speak to the ruler, or privately write to the ruler. وإما بأن يوصي من يتصل به وينبهه على ذلك. Or they pass on the information or the advice to someone who is in contact with the ruler, who can go and pass it on to the ruler. فليس من النصيحة لولاة الأمور الكلام فيهم في المجالس. It is not from the nasiha, from your sincerity and purity regarding the rulers, that you speak about them in your gatherings and sittings, that you speak about their deficiencies and their wrongs and their mistakes and this and that. Talking like that about the rulers in your gatherings is not nasiha to them. أو في غير ذلك, or other than your physical gatherings in other modes and methods, speaking against the rulers, it is not our methodology. لأن هذا من الخيانة لولاة الأمور, because that is then betrayal of the rulers. That is betrayal of the rulers, that you publicly speak against them and refute them and rebuke them. Rather, the nasiha would be that you send them the advice privately and you counsel them and forward that guidance to them, not that you publicly rebuke them. وإن كان عندهم تقصير فليس من النصيحة أن تشهر بأخطائهم عند الناس. Even if there is some shortcoming from the rulers, even if there is, it is not from nasiha that you make their sins or their errors or their misjudgments a public affair. That is not from the methodology of the Salaf to do so, to make their errors or shortcomings or deficiencies a public affair, if they actually have any errors and shortcomings. And that's the other important point Shaykh Rabi' Hafidhahullah Ta'ala highlighted in Usul-Sunnah of Imam Ahmad, his explanation of it. Under the section regarding the rulers, he said that a common person, meaning a person who isn't at government level, not involved as a government minister within the government and within the circle of the ruler and the authorities, everybody else, the citizens do not know what is going on at the government level and the rulers and the authorities. They may have to make certain decisions that you as a citizen, when you look at that decision, you think, that's wrong. How can they make that decision for this country? How can they go and arrange this business deal with such and such a country, or that business deal with such and such a country, and that country did this or did that? You as a citizen may see certain things that the rulers do, which in your limited view as a citizen, you think it's incorrect and wrong and it's a mistake. But that's only because you do not have the view of the ones in authority, who have far more ability and knowledge and understanding of their circumstances to decide on what to do and what not to do. They have a greater understanding of the economics and of trade and all those affairs that occur on a worldwide level between the countries, etc. They know that. They know of those affairs and the details on what to do, what not to do. You as a citizen who have no idea, you think you know by reading something on the internet and articles here and there. You do not know the reality of what occurs between governments and governments, ruler and a ruler, a country and a country. At that level of discussion, you have no idea. They don't publicize the minutes of their meetings for that. So for you to now make a judgment on a ruler that he's made a mistake on this or made a mistake on that, Shaykh Rabi'a said, wait, you are a citizen who does not know the details and the ins and the outs of the rulers and their relationships and the politics and economics and various things that go on at that level. You don't know any of those things for you to hastily make a judgment, he's done this wrong or done that wrong. So even that, you have to be careful. It's not straightforward. The ruler has done such and such a trade deal with a country, that's got to be a mistake. Why did he do that? You cannot make judgments like that. You are at the citizen level. You are not at the level of the government to understand the intricacies of those affairs and the dealings and the relationships. So Shaykh Rabi'a mentioned that you cannot make those judgments like that. You are not at the level of understanding all the intricacies and the details. But let's say there is an obvious shortcoming, something clear cut that is a mistake, then even then the Shaykh says, لَيْسَ مِنَ النَّصِيحَةِ أَن تُشَهِّرَ بِأَخْطَائِهِمْ عِنْدَ النَّاسِ. It is not from nasiha that you then publicize their errors amongst the people. The rulers have made an error here, they've made an error there, and maybe even get to the level of arrogance of saying, but it's okay. إِذَا اجْتَهَدَ الْحَاكِمْ, quote the hadith, that if a ruler strives and genuinely wants to get to the correct ruling, إِذَا اجْتَهَدَ الْحَاكِمْ فَأَخْطَأ فَلَهُ أَجْرٌ. They'll say to you, if a ruler really strives sincerely, but he ends up making a mistake, he'll still get one reward at least. Because they've made the decision that the ruler has made an error. You've made a decision, the ruler has made an error, so you've made the decision, the ruler's going to get one reward, mashallah. And they quote sometimes maybe that, it's okay, he'll get one reward for it. As though, khalas, you are the mufti, you are the judge, you've decided now that the ruler has made an error, he's going to get one reward for it. So this is from the arrogance, and it is not correct for a person to speak in this way. لِأَنَّ هَذَا يَجُرُّ شَرًّا. Because if you open up that door, it's going to lead on to evil. بَلِ النَّصِيحَةَ أَن تُبَلِّغَهُمْ إِنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ ذَلِكَ أَوْ تُبَلِّغَهُمْ بِالْوَاسِطَةِ. But the nasiha is that you inform them directly of the shortcoming and advise them, or via someone who can go and speak to them. فإن الواجب أن تسكت لأنك نعم وإن عجزت عن إبلاغهم مباشرة أو بالواسطة فإن الواجب أن تسكت لأنك معذور. Look at that. If you are unable to get to the ruler to advise him, you know that he's made a mistake, but you're unable to get to him, you're unable to go via any other routes to get to him, via the secretaries and the other types of counselors and ministers they have. You can't go via any route to get your advice to the ruler. You can't do it. And you believe he's made a mistake, and you believe you need to advise him, nasiha. But there's no way for you to get to him. So the Shaykh says in that case, al-wajib upon you is to then be quiet. You are excused. You've seen an error, but you are incapable of sending that nasiha to the ruler, then be quiet. Don't say the ruler's made an error, I can't speak to him personally, I can't get a meeting with him personally, neither do I have any successful route of getting my advice to him. There's no proper route for my advice to get to the ruler, I can't get to him. So then I'm going to have to publicly go on the minbar and clarify. Or I'm going to have to publicly deliver a lecture and clarify. Or I'm going to have to write a book and clarify. The Shaykh says, no, you are excused then. Be quiet, you are excused if you cannot directly go to the ruler or via some other route to get the advice to the ruler. And these are things that the Khawarij and the Ikhwanis, they don't understand. As far as they're concerned, they will say, no, but you have to enjoin the good. And we can't get to the ruler, so the only other way to enjoin the good, I have to publicly highlight and clarify the mistakes of the ruler. And that is incorrect and not from the methodology of the Salaf. أما من يتكلم في شأن ولاة الأمور عند الناس وعند الأعداء وعند الخصوم فهذا يجر شرا ويفرق الأمة وليس من النصيحة. So as for the one who speaks about the affairs of the rulers amongst the people, or even amongst the enemies of those rulers, or those who are opposing those rulers, then that is all going to open up the doors to bringing evil and splitting up the ummah. Splitting up the ummah. And that is not from nasiha. بل هو من التأليب على ولاة الأمور. Rather doing that then, spreading information about them amongst the people, etc., you are only inciting the people against the rulers. You are inciting the people against the rulers. وهو أشد أنواع الغيبة. And it is the most severe type of backbiting. It is the most severe type of backbiting. لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في معنى الغيبة, as the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said in the meaning of غيبة, backbiting, ذكرك أخاك بما يكره. That you mention your brother, you speak about your brother with something that he detests. هذا مع عامة الناس. That's generally with general folk. Anybody, you speak about him with words, with affairs that he dislikes, he detests, then you are backbiting him. فَكَيْفَ بِوُلَاةِ الْأُمُورِ. So what therefore if you're doing that in regards to the ruler over you all? وَلَيْسَ هَذَا مِنْ إِنْكَارِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And that's not even, in case the Ikhwanis and those people, they say, but this is enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. The Shaykh says, no, you publicly speaking against the rulers, inciting the people against the rulers, is not considered as forbidding the evil. كما يقول بعضهم, as some of them say, هذا هو المنكر نفسه. Your action of speaking against the rulers and inciting the people against them, that's the munkar itself. That's what people need to forbid itself. You are doing what you're doing, claiming that you're forbidding the evil of the ruler, but your action is the evil itself that people need to forbid. هذا هو المنكر نفسه التشهير بهم في المجالس. Publicizing the errors and the shortcomings of the rulers in your gatherings. فإنكار المنكر له طرق. Forbidding the evil has its particular methods. There are particular methods of how you do that. إنكار المنكر مع الولاة أن توصل إليهم النصيحة بأي طريق. هذا إنكار المنكر. You getting your advice to the ruler privately somehow via some route, then that okay. It is an attempt at enjoining the good, forbidding the evil. أما إذا عجزت عن ذلك فإنك تسكت. But if you're incapable of that, then you need to be quiet. لأنك معذور. Because you are then excused. ولا تتكلم فيهم وتقول هذا إنكار منكر. Don't speak against them and incite the people against them and cause corruption and chaos and then say, but I am forbidding the evil that the rulers are upon. هذا لا يجدي شيئا. This doesn't produce anything. This doesn't bring about any good result. بل هذا يزيدهم حقدا ويزيدهم غيظا على رعيتهم فتحصل المفاسد. That will only bring about more evil, and it will create enmity from the rulers against their citizens. If the citizens are spreading evil about their rulers or speaking about their rulers, then that's only going to create enmity from the ruler to his citizens. And corruption is caused in that way. أو أنهم يتسلطون على الدعاة. Or that the rulers then clamp down on the du'at, on the callers. وعلى طلبة العلم, and perhaps upon the students of knowledge then. يتسلطون عليهم بسبب هذا الكلام الذي يقال وينشر. Maybe the rulers then will clamp down on the callers and the students of knowledge because of this speech that is being spread about them. فيجر ذلك شرا على الأمة. So that then brings about evil upon the ummah. هذا ليس من النصيحة لولاة الأمور ولا من إنكار المنكر. This is not from the nasiha to the wulat al-umur, to the rulers, and neither is it considered from forbidding the evil. وكذلك من النصيحة لولاة الأمور الدعاء لهم بالصلاح. From the nasiha, from the things that you can do, is make dua for the rulers. Make dua for the rulers that Allah rectifies them and brings about good from them. And these are the kinds of things that are often neglected, that people do not remember. The Ikhwanis and the Takfiris and their likes, as soon as they see an error from the ruler, they want to spread that and publicize that, and there isn't even a mention anywhere about making dua for the ruler, that maybe Allah to give nasiha to the general folk, to one another. النصيحة لعامة المسلمين تكون بالصدق في المعاملة، أما الذي يغش المسلمين في البيع والشراء والمعاملات فقد خانهم ولم ينصح لهم، قال صلى الله عليه وسلم من غشنا فليس منا. So nasiha, purity, sincerity between each other, it is that you are upright and truthful and honest and honorable with the other believers, that you do not deceive the believers, you do not betray your brothers, you do not cheat them in buying and selling and other transactions and dealings and interactions. فَقَدْ نَعْمْ. So whomsoever does that has deceived his brothers. And the Prophet ﷺ said, whomsoever betrays us or deceives us and cheats us, then he is not from us. Meaning it is a major sin for a person to do that. وكذلك من النصيحة لعامة المسلمين دعوتهم إلى الله بدعوتهم إلى إصلاح ما عندهم من الخلل وبيان ما يجهلون من أمور دينهم. And also from the nasiha to the common Muslims, to the general folk, is to call them to Islam, to call them to Allah, to call them to Tawheed, to call them to the Sunnah, to the rectification of their errors and shortcomings, and to clarify to them that which they do not know from their ignorance. And also enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. That is something required, and that is from the nasiha to the common folk. And that is as the Prophet ﷺ said, من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. That whomsoever sees an evil from you, then change it with your hand. That's for the one who is in authority. And if you're not able, then with your tongue. And if you're not able, then with your heart at least. And that is the weakest of Iman. So you enjoin the good and forbid the evil amongst the people to the level of your ability, to what you are capable of amongst the people. And also from the nasiha for the common folk, أن تدل أخاك وترشده إذا استشارك وطلب منك النصيحة. That you give sincere advice and guidance and input and counsel to anybody who requests that from you. If your brother comes to you seeking some guidance and input from you, then give him sincere advice and input and guidance from your part in that affair. For example, the Shaykh says maybe somebody comes asking you about an affair regarding marriage or marrying someone. Give them sincere advice about it, and perhaps about traveling with someone or other affairs that somebody comes to seek some guidance and advice from you. Then from the nasiha, purity and sincerity is that you give them sincere advice on that particular issue. And it mentions in a hadith, من أشار على أخيه بأمر يعلم أن الرشد في غيره فقد خانه. That whomsoever advises his brother with something and he knows that is not the good advice, he knows that something else would be better, but he advises his brother with this other affair, then he has betrayed his brother. He has betrayed him and deceived him, the Messenger said. And that is in regards to perhaps marriage or other affairs. You have to speak the truth and allow the person to know the reality upon sincerity and upon the reality of an affair. But this is all from the advice and goodness and sincerity between the believers. And then the Shaykh says at the end, فَهَذَا الْحَدِيثُ مِنْ جَوَامِعِ الْكَلِمِ. That this narration is from the جَوَامِعِ الْكَلِمِ, meaning it's a comprehensive narration. The hadith is small, but the meanings of it and the the advice from it and the rulings from it are great. Even though the hadith is barely a line long. فَالدِّينُ كُلُّهُ هُوَ النَّصِيحَةِ. All of this religion, it is nasiha, sincerity and purity within it. وَلِهَذَا قَالَ الدِّينُ النَّصِيحَةِ فَالَّذِي لَيْسَ عِنْدَهُ نَصِيحَةٌ أَبَدًا لَيْسَ عِنْدَهُ دِينٌ. So the one who doesn't have that purity in him, then he doesn't have the reality of his religion and practicing of it. وَإِنْ كَانَ عِنْدَهُ نَقْصٌ فِي النَّصِيحَةِ صار عنده نقص في الدين فالدين يكمل وينقص ويزول بسبب عدم النصيحة أو نقصانها. So if a person has a deficiency in his nasiha in these affairs, then he has a deficiency in his religion corresponding to that. And so it is important for a person to strive to be upon nasiha in those affairs that are mentioned in this narration. That brings us to the end of hadith number 7. Hadith number 8 will begin with next week, insha'Allah ta'ala. So we'll conclude upon that for today then. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.